Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Digging Deep.
Welcome, everyone. Nice to have you all back here again.
And do you see our fancy new wall?
I know, it's very fancy, eh?
I really like it. While we wait for some people to join, what have you been up to?
What haven't we been doing? That seems like to be my answer every time we have Digging Deep. But we're getting our greenhouse ready. We're getting ready to move in there. We're chugging right along with planting. We are at max capacity inside of our office with our light gardens. We've cobbled together light gardens, but we are like, we cannot cobble anymore. We need to move into the greenhouse.
And we've been like super strategic about how we're like placing things, and we're at max capacity.
We're at max capacity. So next week we'll be in the greenhouse. We're going to start planting brassicas probably next week. We're going to have a lot more flowers going soon. We'll probably start some like hanging baskets and planters next week. So there's going to be a lot happening next couple weeks.
I'm really excited. And how many times did I almost kill you on the ladder today?
Only twice, but I'm still here.
Only twice. We do have a big prize pack to give away. It's valued at over $270. And that doesn't include the exclusive swag you can't get anywhere else, which is priceless in my opinion.
Yes.
So what do we got? You picked the most of these out.
So maybe I'll go through this because I actually haven't seen the list yet because I've been so busy. So we have exclusive swag. We have a Veseys Seeds red bell pepper stress ball. Mm-hmm. We have a container of our bulb fertilizer. We have an exclusive Veseys swag travel mug. A bag of the stir-on onion sets. We have Sensation Daylily.
If you pull those out, they will tumble.
Okay, I won't pull them all out then. But there's a cabbage cookbook in here. It looks like there's another Veseys swag notebook in here. Lots of other bulbs and roots tucked away in there. There's some bulbs and roots tucked down here that you can't see. So we have lots to give away.
Potatoes.
Oh, and we have a bag of potatoes as well.
And I did move the bulb planter just because I thought it was going to fall.
Yeah, and those are incredibly handy for like planting your bulbs.
All right, I do have a list of things: Sincerity Dahlia, Summer Candy Cone Flowers, Lemon Snap Hosta, Singular Sensation Daylily, Miss Freya Lily. I keep calling it Freya. I don't know why. Color Wheel Ranunculus, Sir Alf Ramsey Dahlia, Peaches and Cream Dahlia, Gold Rush Glads, Milkshake Glads.
Awesome.
So over $270. Very excited. We've got Nicole and Jennifer watching. Welcome. If you have questions, let us know. If not, I have some.
All right, perfect.
I'll start with this one. It's a big one.
Okay.
Jennifer Steves says, I'd like tips on growing eucalyptus in our climate. I started some last month and they're still so tiny. It makes me wonder how big they actually get here, or should I have started them sooner than mid-March?
Right. So we've grown eucalyptus. We grew it last year. Mm-hmm. Some of them did quite well. Some of the typical eucalyptus did quite well. They probably got 20 inches, 24 inches, and once you stretch them fully out.
Yeah, some of them got really big, but we did notice, we were worried planting them out. They were really small in the greenhouse. They were really small, and are they going to do anything? And when they got outside, they took off. Yeah,
they took right off. They had, we probably could have trimmed them once more to make them bush out a little bit more, but they still grew really, really well for the season. Mm-hmm. We've had some different species of eucalyptus, not just the typical ones. I'm not going to ruin anything, but one of them was blew us out of the water with the amount of growth it gave us. It was got to the height of a ornamental grass in one season, easy.
Yeah, and it's really fun because if we're trialing it in the gardens, that means that hopefully it's coming soon to the catalog.
Exactly. It's very close on my radar. It's top 5 on my radar is that species.
Yeah, and we actually took our eucalyptus and we dried it and we hung it in the basement all winter long so we can see the longevity and how it dries and how the smell lasts.
And we've actually learned that some species don't dry very well. They dry, but the leaves shrivel and they kind of fall off, whereas the stereotypical eucalyptus, they hold on to the stems really well.
Right, so I would put those ones in a bouquet and I would use the other ones for dried arrangements indoors.
Exactly.
But it's fun to learn these things so we can then bring it to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Part 2 of the question. Any tips on starting heliotrope? I saved seeds from last year but can't get them to germinate. Tried some heating mat covered with the dome. Tried some not on a mat. Just no luck.
Heliotrope's an interesting one. So I haven't grown any from seed. So we'll go back to maybe when they harvested the seed. You want to harvest it when it's dry. You want to make sure it's completely dry before you put it in storage. Storage is around, our fridge at the company at work is around 15 degrees Celsius, 50% humidity. I don't expect, all home gardeners to have the perfect conditions to store seeds at home.
Right.
If you don't, somewhere cool and dark and dry is the best place. Typically in a airtight container just inside your fridge, like in your food crisper. That's typically the best spot you can get in your house.
And if if the seeds aren't fully formed and mature, then they're not going to grow, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So there's a lot of things that can go wrong, a lot of things that can go right. Sometimes saving your seed can be a gamble.
Yes, yeah. Typically, most seeds are like a very dark color. Usually if they're like a white or a gray or something like that, they're not fully developed quite yet.
All right, we have the questions rolling in. Are
Okay.
you ready?
All right.
Heather Rogers says, I started onion seeds for the first time. I've given them 2 haircuts. Should I keep doing that until I plant them outside?
You can keep doing that, and all that energy is going to keep going back into the bulbs.
Yeah. We actually gave our onions a haircut today.
Yeah, we did. It's really fun. I find usually after the second haircut is usually when you start to see the bulbs start to grow a little bit, and that's a really exciting time.
Yeah, so for those who have never given their onion seeds a haircut, how high should you?
6 to 8 inches, probably somewhere in there. You don't want to go too low. You might stress out the bulb by creating a big wound that they'll lose a lot of moisture through.
So like when they reach 8 inches, cut them to 6, or?
Usually once they're, let's say 10 inches long, you can cut them back anywhere from 6 to 8 inches. It's usually best to err on the side of a little bit longer than a little too short, and then the plants can rebound a little bit better.
All right. Carrie says, hello, do you have any tips on starting your Aunt Molly organic ground cherries?
Aunt Molly's germinate very well. You can direct seed them. We've done that before. You can start them like tomatoes. If you're going to start them like tomatoes, have some bottom heat, have a dome to help hold that humidity. Once you get like 50% germination, you can turn off your bottom heat and take off your dome. If not, you're basically just looking at direct sowing after the last frost.
Yeah, I love ground cherries.
Yeah.
My favorite way to eat them is like hamburger macaroni tomato soup. I think it's called goulash.
Yep.
They're perfect in there. I love them. Let's see. Natasha says, I've never owned a large light garden before. Just recently purchased one from Veseys. Any tips that I should know?
Keep the lights about 6 inches above the plant canopy, and you're going to be moving that up maybe we'll say 1 to 2 times a week as the plants grow. If the plants get too close, they can burn. If they're too far away, the plants will start to stretch and look for light. So really, in that sweet point is about 6 inches above the plant canopy. And if you have them on a timer, about 12 hours a day on and 12 hours a day off. That seems to be the sweet spot for, as across all crops, basically.
Yeah, and if you outgrow your light garden, you can just rotate your plants after 12 hours and put new ones in.
That's right.
Once you get a light garden, that's it. You'll be filling it up and needing another one.
Yes.
How many light gardens do we have?
I can count lights. We're probably pushing anywhere from 25 to 30 lights right now.
Yeah, and they're maxed.
Yeah.
Natasha says, also, I had dahlias last year in pots, and I stored them in my basement for the winter. Would that be okay to plant them back in pots inside now, or should I wait?
You can do that now, but if you're doing tubers, you might not have to pull them out quite yet. They'll come a little bit faster from tubers. But certainly pull them out, have a look at them, see which ones are soft, if there's any rot. Discard those ones. And then if you're going to be transplanting some of those tubers, I would be starting with some new fresh soil. You just don't know what kind of organisms or diseases, fungi might be living in the soil from years past. So just start with fresh soil again.
And when you're planting your dahlias up, 4 weeks before last frost, if you want to start them?
Yeah.
We had some really shriveled tubers that we saved over winter, and they even grew.
Yeah.
And those ones are not soft.
Yeah. And that's not to say, the tubers will, wrinkle and they'll be, hard, but you don't want them to be soft and squishy and have, a rotting smell or look to them. The dried, kind of wilted look is very typical of a dried dahlia tuber.
Carrie says she loves my Plant Mom shirt. Can Old Navy, $12. It was a good buy. Patricia, I started my tomato plants about a month and a half ago, and they started to lose their bottom leaves and dry up before they fall off. What's going on? So
that just sounds like the tomato naturally shedding their leaves, kind of like how we shed our old hair, basically. That's essentially what's happening. It can be a sign of stress too. Have a look at the root ball. It might be root bound, and it could be discarding those old leaves to push all the new energy into new growth to continue growing. So if you are seeing that, maybe look at uppotting the plants.
I do find that tomatoes are often one of the ones that usually shed their cotyledons because they're not the true leaves.
Yes.
So if it is the very first true leaves, that's less to worry about than the first set of true leaves coming off.
Yeah. If you're seeing discoloration in the leaves, some weird like cupping, if they're cupping up or cupping down, if the leaves get really leathery and hard feeling, then you might be looking at, some foliar diseases. So then, send us some pictures, some information, and then we'll be able to help you.
Lindsay says, I know PEI doesn't have deer, but do you have any flower plants that deer don't eat? But you're not from PEI. So
I'm not from PEI. I'm from Nova Scotia originally, so I have lots of experience with deer and gardening. My best answer for deer and gardening is there's no one plant I haven't seen a deer eat. Even roses, they will go after roses. The only thing I've seen them eat less of is barberry. Yes. But everything else, they will eat them clean.
Especially if they're hungry enough. I mean, the best way to stop a deer would be what? A fence?
You could try a fence. We got like scare eye balloons, but again, these animals are coming out really early in the morning, late in the evening, so like maybe the sun's not up, so the scare balloons might not be working as well. You can try some of the what's the Critter Ritter. Yes, it has capsaicin, which is the active ingredient, which is essentially just the really spicy part of a pepper. If they eat a leaf and it's really, really spicy, hopefully they're not into spice and they'll stop coming to the plants.
Yeah, I'm glad we don't have deer.
Yes.
We're very, very lucky. The worst we have to deal with is like raccoons eating our watermelon and corn.
My poor mother right now, she has hostas lining her whole driveway and she is battling them right now. And I have a cherry tree at home as well, and every year they just like wrap their lips around the bottom of the branch and go like that, just like a piece of spaghetti, and just every leaf in one little swipe right off the branch.
That's kind of impressive, but also like super mean.
I know. But like you can't be mad at them because like...
They gotta eat too.
I know.
They gotta eat. We are lucky that we don't have them.
Yes.
Where did that go? Oh, Carrie says, already dreading the yearly fight with the birds. What are bird deterrent tips for your garden?
Scare eye balloons. I know there's some like owl deterrents. They're kind of like just like a scarecrow but an owl. We also carry a product called bird tape. That's a very cool product. It's essentially just like a fine like nylon or like a plastic sort of like a string basically. Yeah, like a ribbon. And what you do is you tie it between two ends very, very tight, pull it very taut. And then as the wind catches it, it kind of moves around like a skip rope, and it makes a whipping noise. And the whipping noise best sounds like a helicopter flying above. We used it a couple of years ago through our pumpkins and our watermelons. I didn't see any crows and birds there, so maybe it was working, but I wasn't looking closely for them either. We also had the scare eye balloons out too, so it could have been a combination of both.
I do know this year I want to get some bird tape out before we plant our onions. Last year the crows decided that it'd be really fun to pull all of our onion transplants out.
Yes.
They weren't eating them. They weren't doing anything except just pulling them out.
A new fun toy for them.
What a good time.
Yes.
We do have a bunch of people watching. We got 32 people. So now's a good time to remind everyone that we're giving away this huge prize pack. It's valued at over $270. Potatoes, onions, lilies, dahlias.
Yeah, we got some stress balls. We got some exclusive Veseys swag too. So not just plants. We have some other things as well.
Okay, next question. Indeterminate tomatoes. I recently watched a video on pinching seedlings just above the cotyledons to produce two main stems. Mm-hmm. Would you recommend doing this? I've only heard of pinching suckers and topping when near the end of the season.
Yeah, so for us, we only pinch suckers, but we don't pinch all the suckers. We pinch, the first 3 or 4 that appear, which would be the farthest down on the stem. That's to help with airflow and that early establishment of the plant. Once we're late into the season, we kind of let the suckers go as they're going to produce fruit as well.
Now, indeterminates kind of grow off one main stem. Mm-hmm. I know I've done the pinching with determinate tomatoes, like bushier ones. Do you think that would inhibit? Do you think it would grow 2 main stems?
It might grow 2 main stems, but also I'm not entirely sure about that because I've never tried that, so that's not something I'm going to recommend because I don't want you to top your plants and then have them all die or not do what they're supposed to. So.
Yeah, and I mean, we get a lot of tomatoes. I couldn't imagine.
We get a lot of tomatoes.
I couldn't imagine wanting more.
We get a lot of tomatoes.
Maybe space is limited. That can make sense. But yeah, topping peppers, it can help. Mm-hmm. Really only if you're so early that they're getting too tall to be indoors.
Yeah. Then I would say it's beneficial. And then really you're looking at only removing like a third of the growth. If you're removing more than that, you risk really stressing out the plant.
See, instead of topping them, I would rather dig them deep, like plant them really deep.
Yep, you can do that too.
We use our bulb planter that is like a drill attachment,
Yep.
and we started planting our tomatoes like as deep as we can.
Yeah, we don't top any of our tomatoes before we transplant them. We just make the hole deeper. Tomatoes do this really cool thing with their cells where they basically have cells on the outside of the stems that are basically ready to go to become anything they need to be, whether it be a branch or a leaf or roots. So once those stems hit soil, the cells are like, oh, soil, we need to grow more roots, and then they grow more roots, and then you get bigger plants and more fruit. So
yeah, bigger root system, and they're sturdier and they're stronger, and I think they hold up to like wind, which is a big thing on PEI. Well, we don't have deer, we have wind.
Yes, we have wind.
It's
been prevalent the last couple of days too.
And like it's windy in Nova Scotia, but it doesn't compare.
No.
Let's see. Jen says, I want to grow herbs outside on my patio that gets extreme sunshine. Any suggestions on types?
Basil would be number one thing that comes to my mind. Lavender is another really good one. If your patio is like exposed to sun all day, I don't think you'll really have to limit yourself to just a couple of things. You know, if you have some small containers of like cilantro, parsley, that sort of thing, you can kind of move them around so they're in some part shade throughout the day, or especially during the heat of the day. But basil and lavender are the first two that kind of come to mind.
Yeah, and keeping them watered to be the most important part, because extreme sunshine would mean extreme heat.
Yeah, exactly.
Evaporation.
Yeah, and depending too, if your apartment's, if you're up a couple of stories, it tends to be more windy, and then that also wicks away more moisture. So you're facing, having a small container with a large root mass, lots of sun and wind. Usually the last half of the season, the containers will dry out very quickly.
But Jen, you can actually grow more than just herbs on your patio. You could put a tomato plant out there, pepper plant out there. Even if you're up on the third floor, the wind will mostly pollinate the peppers and tomatoes. But you could put carrots in a pot. You could do anything.
Yeah.
You can limit yourself to herbs, but like the sky's the limit, really.
Yep, exactly.
All right. Waiting on questions there. I will ask one that we already have. Mary asks, are datura seeds poisonous too, or just the plant? Should I wear gloves when planting the seeds?
Yeah, we recommend you can wear gloves. I certainly would not recommend eating any of the seeds. I think getting a little bit on the skin is going to be okay, but certainly don't go around, eating the seeds or any parts of the plants, and just make sure you're washing your hands really well after you handle the seeds.
Yeah, anything that you should wash your hands, there is a warning, like our treated seed. But yeah, just don't eat them.
Yeah, just be careful and use some common sense. Yeah, that sort of thing.
Don't plant it and then pick your nose.
Yeah, exactly.
Carrie says, what flowers do you recommend for a lush hanging basket?
Lush hanging baskets? Ooh, that's a good one. Wave pansies and petunias are the two number ones. Pansies for spring production, and then pansies for summer production. Specifically waves. They were bred specifically for hanging baskets and containers. You got a 10 to 12 inch pot. If you put 3 to 4 plants in there of the wave petunias, you are going to have a lush full pot all summer.
Yeah, and things like reach out geranium are really good.
Yep.
Some bacopa or alyssum hanging over the side.
Yep.
Yeah. What else did we put in our hanging baskets last year? I forget. They were really pretty, though.
They were.
That's a Joyce department.
Yes. Joyce does a great job of doing all of our displays and our containers and stuff.
Yeah. She tells me what to do and I do it.
Yep.
Maria was confused about what the extra seeds attached to her watermelon seeds are for.
Oh, great question. Okay, so those are pollinator seeds. So the watermelons you are purchasing are seedless watermelons. Seedless watermelons have 33 sets of chromosomes, or triploid watermelons, where seeded watermelons have 22 sets of chromosomes, or they're called diploids. So in order to get seed production in watermelons, you need to have the same number of chromosomes so they can cross with each other. So if you want to have seeds in your seedless watermelon, you need to have a seedless cross with the seedless, 33 and 33. But if you want them to be seedless, you have to cross them with the odd number, which would be the diploid, 22 and 33, thus giving you a seedless watermelon. So that's what that is. So really, when you're getting your seedless watermelon, plant some of your pollinator seeds with it. And then really you're looking at one pollinator plant to, I think it's about 6 or 8 seedless watermelons.
Yeah. And you can plant it in the middle, or plant a couple regular and then do your pollinator and then a couple other on the other side.
Yep, exactly. Just kind of spread them all out from each other.
Yeah, but you want the bee to travel to all of them.
Yes.
Patricia says, can you pinch off dahlia plants? Mine have grown quite high.
Yep, you can pinch them off. Again, only remove about 1/3 of the plant, no more than that. But yeah, you can certainly do that.
Cliff commented he tried getting. He tried getting seed that says it's English cucumber, but it's not. Great time to compare Japanese cucumbers and about cross pollination.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the question.
Okay.
So what is an English cucumber and how is it different from, say, a regular cucumber?
Okay, so a English cucumber, or what we would call, an English cucumber, are essentially seedless cucumbers. Typically greenhouse grown; they're not open field grown, and so what happens is sometimes people will have them growing outside. They cross with like a field cucumber or a burpless cucumber or a Japanese cucumber, and then you end up getting seeds in them. Most English cucumbers are parthenocarpic, which means they don't require pollination, and that's how they remain seedless. They can cross, but they can set fruit by themselves in the greenhouse. So essentially, that's what's happening.
Yeah. So if you plant an English cucumber and right next to it you have a, say, Japanese cucumber, will you get seeds this year?
Yeah. So you will get if you plant them next to each other.
Yeah.
So once they cross pollinate, the seed that are in the fruit after they cross pollinate that would be the seed that you would plant this year, and then you would get some really wonky like crosses then.
Lindsay says, I'm getting your strawberries. I got an email that you sent them yesterday. I'm pumped. I'm planning on putting them in grow bags.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Yeah, strawberries in grow bags.
Work perfectly. Amazing. Get some nice organic matter, some compost or manure to mix with your soil in there, and away you go.
You have greenhouse varieties in your catalog. Can't all veggies be grown in the greenhouse?
They sure can be, but there's specific veggies like Carmen cucumber, which is an English cucumber, that's specifically been bred for greenhouse growing, so they have better disease resistances to foliar diseases like mildews. The parthenocarpic, that's been bred into it as well, so a number of different things.
And it's really just like peppers, tomatoes, and cucumbers?
Yeah, I would say that's like the big three. We are starting to see a big push now in lettuces and spinaches now as well, but really the big three still the cucumbers, tomatoes, and peppers.
All right. Can roly-poly bugs eat the emerging seeds, and how do you prevent it?
I don't think they eat the emergent seeds, but they like decaying matter. I think that's what they like to eat. So if you have like a peat moss-based soil, more than likely they're eating the peat that's in that soil. If you have like maybe a dead plant sitting in a planter as well, they could be chewing on the roots. But as far as I know, they don't eat living matter.
So this comes up all the time. What is eating her seedlings that are popping up?
What is eating her seedlings? That's a great question. I know ants don't necessarily eat the seedlings, but they like to build really aggressive nests, and that can kill the seedlings. It could be a number of other different things. Could be some birds. You said this was in a container, correct?
No, it was in the ground.
Oh, in the ground. Cutworms.
Cutworms.
Sorry.
It's always cutworms.
I missed that part. Yeah, it's always cutworms.
It's always cutworms.
Yes.
You never see them.
Yeah.
They come out at night. People are always like, I saw this, and it's like, it's cutworms.
It's cutworms. So cutworms, if you have a bean sprout, pea sprout, corn, whatever, it'll just be germinated. Cotyledons will come out, and you're like, great, everything's growing. You go to bed and you come out the next morning and it looks like a little miniature lumberjack came in and just toppled all your plants over. That is cutworm.
That is cutworm.
Yeah.
It's always cutworm. They're so bad.
Yeah, and the best way to handle them is diatomaceous earth, aggressively spread around the base of the plants and then reapplied after any rains or anything. Once the stems get like a little bit bigger and they get like hard and woody, typically cutworms won't bother them anymore.
Yeah, they just like fresh.
Yeah, they like the fresh out of the oven plants basically.
Charles says, I tried growing buttercup squash in a bucket of potting soil. It only grew 3-foot runners and got a few male flowers. Is it possible to grow in buckets?
In buckets, you might need a bigger bucket. The plants get quite big. So yeah, you could. I would just go a little bit bigger. Like a grow bag maybe even might be a little bit better. Yeah. It sounds like the growth was being restricted, especially with only 3-foot vines, which isn't super typical of winter squash. They usually grow quite aggressive and long. And seeing stunted growth is usually a determination that the root growth has been restricted in how far it can go as well.
Yeah, and squash are heavy feeders, and potting soil would go through that really quickly. So you'd need to fertilize regularly if you were going to be growing in something like that.
Yeah, I'd recommend get a nice big grow bag, get some potting soil, amend it with some compost or manure. And then even like 6 weeks later, even like top dressing that with a little bit of like triple 10 or something like that.
Yeah. Haley says, can you grow honeydew in PEI?
You sure can.
Oh my God.
So and we have, and it's great.
So good.
The key trick is using like some sort of like a biomulch is what we would call it. It's almost like a plastic layering. It decomposes after one season. Or a textile mulch like landscaping fabric. You're essentially laying that down first, and then you're almost cutting a hole or burning a hole where you want the plants to go, and then planting in that hole. And that, fabric mulch keeps heat and moisture into the soil, which is exactly what melons need.
Yeah, you can grow honeydew. She said she did grow cantaloupe last year. It was amazing. If planted together, will they cross?
They won't cross. They will cross, but it's only going to affect the seed if you save that seed for next year's planting. Yeah. It won't affect the fruit this year.
And since you're going to grow honeydew and cantaloupe, you may as well grow a watermelon.
Might as well. We got a new yellow watermelon. Definitely check out the yellow watermelons.
We've got 2 yellow watermelons, Tropical Sunshine and Yellow Doll.
Yeah.
Heather Rogers, I'm trying corn this year. It never produces ears. What might the issue be?
Might be a little too close together is what I'm first thinking.
Or too far apart.
Too far apart. It could be a pollination thing. I'm assuming you're feeding it really well because the corn needs a lot of nitrogen as well. Because corn is wind pollinated, so you want to have them relatively close together so when it's blowing around all the pollen, it can pollinate the ears. What you will see is like maybe a little baby ear come out, but then for like 2 months it might not form anything, and that would be a pollination problem at that point. So corn, usually you want the plants about 10 to 12 inches apart in rows 12 inches apart, and you want no less than 4 rows wide. You can go wider than that, but no less than 4 rows wide for pollination.
Yeah, I've seen people put corn in like a single long straight row, and it's never going to work. It's got to be a block.
It's got to be a block or a circle or a rectangle or whatever you got for shapes.
Yeah, because like when the wind blows this way, it's going to pollinate these ones. Yes. When it blows this way, it pollinates these ones. And so you need to make sure that it's in a block.
Yeah, exactly.
Patricia says, last question, I promise. Patricia, you can ask all the questions.
That's what we're here for.
I planted AC Valley strawberries 2 years ago, and the emerging flowers had fungus on them. Mm-hmm. What, if anything, can I do to prevent the same thing from happening this year?
So the best thing you can do this year is after the strawberries are done producing, we'll say in July sometime, you're going to, if you have a push mower or any kind of mower, you're going to set it as high as you can, and as much as your body's going to tell you not to, you're going to mow over the strawberries. Basically mowing over the strawberries mulches up any of the old leaves from this year and mulches that so it breaks down and decomposes faster, so any diseases that are on the leaves don't get carried over to next year.
Yeah.
You're going to be doing it and you'll be like, you're going to want to stop, but it helps them a lot, trust me. And you're not like going so low. Once you cut off the big old leaves, you'll see a lot of new leaves starting to come as well.
And should you be covering your strawberries for the winter?
Yeah, cover them. I know some people like to use fir boughs, straw, any other kind of mulchy products you have would be the best thing.
Okay.
And you would want to remove that in the spring as well. You don't want to leave it on.
Vesna wants to know if you can plant wildflowers in containers.
Yep, you sure can. Yep, absolutely. Annual surprise mix, I know that's a favorite of Tara's.
It is. Now, would you do the perennial wildflowers in a container?
You could, but then the big issue becomes trying to winter over that container for next year. Because if they're perennial, you do want them to come back year after year. So if you do want to do that, you may want to put your container in like a very sheltered place around your property, like maybe a crook in the house that faces south. If you have an unheated shed in there, maybe between some big structures, any of those is really going to keep it out of the elements as best as possible.
Yeah, annual surprise mix. When I hear the word container, I think like this and smaller.
Yes.
Otherwise, people are like raised bed.
Yes.
I think, wildflowers in a container would be difficult. Annual surprise mix for sure.
Yes.
But plant all the flowers.
Yeah.
Carrie says, how soon after planting potatoes do the dreaded potato bugs typically emerge? Last year was our first year being plagued, and I want to be on my game this year.
So I know you grew up on a potato farm. I did not grow up on a potato farm. I grew up close to Christmas tree farms, which are a little bit different, but they come about mid-season, eh?
Mid-season, yeah. And if you've had them there before, they're going to be earlier. So if you had them last year and their larvae and stuff overwintered in your soil, you're going to see them sooner. Than whether or not they move in from another area where they're looking for food.
Yeah. If you have like corn stalks on your property or anything like that, they like to winter over in a lot of mulchy, a lot of protected areas like that. If you're close to any fields like on PEI, I know it's hard to get away from a potato field, but usually once a farmer goes in and treats the field for potato beetles, they usually migrate someplace else that hasn't been treated, which does happen to us quite often.
It happens to us, yeah. And it's not just potatoes. If you decide that you're not going to plant potatoes this year to maybe escape them, you're still going to get them if you have peppers, tomatoes, eggplants.
Beans. They come on beans sometimes too.
Potatoes are in the same family. They're a nightshade.
Yeah, like potatoes, tomatoes, eggplants, peppers are all in the same family. Kind of like from the list down, they like decimate our eggplants first, like overnight.
They love eggplant more than peppers and tomatoes.
Then they might move to the tomatoes, and then maybe peppers last if they're still hungry. So
yeah, the best thing to do is pick them off. They're really kind of slow and easy to pick off.
Yes.
And then you want to look for their larvae underneath the leaves or like little orange dots in a cluster.
Yep.
And just pinch off the entire leaf and throw it in a bucket of soapy water.
And if you have some chickens, like if you're collecting the bugs in a bucket, they love to eat them. So.
Yeah, potato beetles. They're easier to kill than cucumber beetles.
Luckily, they are one of the easier pests to treat in terms of like how easy it is to get them like naturally.
Yeah. And you could always plant a couple like eggplants as a catch crop to be like, come over here, leave that alone.
Yeah.
And then you can spray them with like dish soap and other things to leave your potatoes alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, about July.
And it probably depends too on the season. Like if it's a little bit warmer, they're probably going to be a little bit earlier. If it stays cool, they might be a little bit later. Not off the top of my head, I don't know, but I'm assuming like the government of Canada or some of like the provincial extensions, they must have some sort of like monitoring program that lets you know where they've been spotted already, so you can kind of track where they are and when to prepare.
Yeah, I just recommend going for a plant walk every day. I do mine with coffee. You're welcome to do it with wine. And just checking your plants every day.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things to do. Jim, I've seen people overwinter flowers inside. How do I bring them in without inviting every single bug secretly living on the plant into my house?
Yeah, that's a really hard thing to do. Usually if you're bringing stuff back in, usually like insecticidal soap's usually the best thing, but not every plant likes insecticidal soaping, and it can burn leaves as well. But also you have to make direct contact with insecticidal soap, so if you're not making that direct contact, you could still be harboring pests and bring them right inside. So it's a hard thing to do. Best thing you can do, if the plants are okay getting insecticidal soap on them, treat them with that and then quarantine them someplace for 2 weeks inside.
Yeah. And if, like, I've brought peppers in from outside, I've actually dug them up from the ground and basically like cut them back, so all of their leaves, and just leave them a couple of leaves and they'll regrow, but you can like hose them off and be a little aggressive with peppers. And then you're making sure that you don't have anything, but you got to quarantine it away from the rest of your beloved plants.
That's the big thing. Yeah.
You might get them. How do you suggest overwintering dahlias?
Dahlias, so after you get like a first light frost when a lot of the foliage is starting to die, you're basically going to cut that off. You're going to pull the tubers up and you're going to shake off a lot of the soil, and you're going to let those tubers sit somewhere with a lot of airflow in a kind of sunny area to basically dry. And you're basically drying them until they get a little bit wrinkled. They're a little bit hard. Any that are soft and squishy you want to get rid of because they're going to rot. And then once that happens, you can put them in the basement or wherever you need to put them, and away you go. We bare rooted some dahlia tubers not this past winter, but the winter before, and we just had them out in the open in the basement at work, and they stayed all winter and they came fine the next season.
Yeah, we did nothing. We wanted to see like if you did the bare minimum, would they be okay? So like we didn't dry them for a long period of time in the greenhouse or anywhere else. We never checked on them at all winter. And majority of them were fine. It was probably because we didn't pull them out soon enough because
Yeah.
the basement is heated. So
Yes, that would have kept them a little bit drier as well.
yeah, so but they were shriveled to nothing.
They were shriveled,
and I couldn't believe that they grew. And
like they were a-okay. They weren't like a little okay. Like no, they were completely fine.
Completely fine.
Yeah.
So but you have to be okay if you're doing the bare minimum that
Yes.
it might not work.
Yes, you always run that risk.
Yeah, we just try and like, could we do nothing and still be successful?
Exactly.
And we were.
Yep.
All right. Lita, how to use heat mats and grow lights properly. Last week, I burnt all of my cauliflower seedlings under grow lights.
Mm-hmm. So grow lights, 6 inches above the plant canopy. Not as important before plants germinate, but I still leave our lights on because stuff can germinate over the weekend or in the evening while we're away, and I want to make sure they're not going to be stretching looking for light. So 6 inches above the plant canopy. Heat mats, you plug them in. There's no set temperature you have to set them to, at least the ones that we carry. I think they typically run anywhere from 18 to 22 degrees Celsius, which is like optimum soil temperature for germinating most things. That would be the two number one things.
And would you use a heat mat with cauliflower?
For cauliflower, no. Cauliflower, they really don't need it. Just ambient air temperature, they'll germinate just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything that is a cold-loving plant doesn't typically need it. Would you do a heat mat for, say, pansies?
Yeah, pansies I would. Most flowers will. You could probably get away with not using it for a lot of perennials, but most flowers will. Most brassica, basically you want to actually use it for like tomatoes, peppers, melons, or anything like that, like any of the heat-loving crops.
This is a question from Jeff.
Okay.
He says, what size tractor and what attachments should I get to grow fruit trees, berries, and broccoli?
I think you should get the biggest tractor, and I think you should get all the attachments for the tractors, because tractors are a lot of fun. That
is my husband asking that question, and it's not that I won't let him get a tractor, it's like the bank account says no. And while 4 acres seems like a lot, I don't think it's going to make enough to, like, it's not tractor money.
Yeah, yes.
It is not tractor money. Sorry, Jeff. I can get you a little, like, toy tractor, though.
I'm manifesting that Jeff gets a tractor.
Let's listen, everybody is. Tracy, what is the secret to growing chives? Mine are tiny and thin and don't seem to be going anywhere.
So chives, they don't need a lot of special treatment, but you do want, when you're starting the seeds, like 3 or 4 seeds in a cell. You can sow them really thick and don't really have to thin them afterwards. They'll just kind of keep growing and you can pick them as you want them. Usually a little bit cooler weather than a hotter weather. In the heat of the summer, you might drive them to pollinate or to create flowers, especially after a couple of years. If you can put them someplace that gets lots of sun in the spring and then like part shade in the summertime, you're set.
Oh, I lost the chat. Hang on. All right. Should we remind everyone about our great prize?
Absolutely. How many items do we have here? I'm going to guess 15 to 16? 15?
Oh, well, I have a list of how many bulbs. And how much is it worth?
So it's worth just over $270 retail. And it's going to be given away today on the stream.
11, 12.
So we have a number of different plants, exclusive Veseys swag. We have some bulb fertilizer. And we have our famous cabbage cookbook as well.
There are 18 items.
Oh, look at that. Perfect.
18 items. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
And we will box it up tomorrow, and we will ship it out Canada Post. We'll send you the tracking number. Let's see. Oh, Carrie says, I don't regret, love my John Deere. We also have 4 acres. Carrie, you're not helping. You're not helping. I do wish we could have a tractor, but we did get a tractor lawnmower.
That counts.
It's got to count for something.
That counts.
All right. This is my last question. We'll see if other questions come in online. What is the best soil for tomatoes? In a garden or in a 5-gallon bucket better?
The best soil is you always start with like a peat-based soil. You can start with like a natural or a native soil, which would be just soil you can find outside, but you always run the risk of having like weed seeds and whatever else might be harboring in there. So always start with like fresh peat-based soil, and you're always going to amend it with compost or manure. That's the best thing. Best soil really for like all crops, especially like tomatoes, peppers, melons, anything that needs like a lot of nutrients, a lot of like big fruit. That's the best soil to work with.
The girl who's doing the comments at the office, she just said, tomorrow's a holiday. We'll be shipping it Monday.
We'll ship it Monday.
And is Monday a government holiday?
I'm not sure.
We'll get it to you, I promise.
We'll get it to you.
We'll get it to you. Whenever Canada Post says we can, we will get it to you.
Yes.
On top of your other question, June says, what is the best soil for transplanting seedlings? I mixed potting soil with seedling mix, and from what I Googled, it looks like fungus has attacked the roots.
Okay, it could be. I know when some seeds germinate, when they're sending out fresh new roots, it looks like there's fungus on the roots, but that's actually root hairs, and that's actually where the plant, on those root hairs, that's where the water and the nutrients are being extracted from the soil from. So it might look like fungus, but it's more than likely just fresh, brand new roots. But the best soil, I mean, if you're just transplanting for a few weeks, if you're trying to grow something and then put it into your garden, just straight potting mix is just fine with some perlite, peat, and vermiculite. Yeah, that's fine.
Tracy says, I bought your Lambert's all-purpose soil. What is it best for, and do you need to add anything to it?
Yep, so it's good for like transplants. Again, if you're looking to just carry some plants over for, the 2 to 4 weeks between, the seedling stage and before they go outside, it's good for that. It's also a good base, a good starting point. So if you're looking to add it to containers, hanging baskets, window boxes, add some compost, manure. You could even add just a tiny bit of like slow release fertilizer as well. Not very much, but just a little bit. It's a good starting point, but we can always improve on it and make it better for the long term.
I would even add worm castings.
Yeah, worm castings is great too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like we have like a big veg truck that you can plant in, and you could throw that in. But yeah, I would definitely amend it with some other compost, especially if you're going long term.
Yeah, long term. Yeah.
It's fine for little transplants and potting up and whatnot. But if it's going to live in that soil for the whole season, you want to beef it up a little bit.
You want to bulk it up, yeah.
Yeah. And you can even top dress with worm castings because I love them. Oh, Diana says, what is the best soil for carrots?
Best soil for carrots? You want soil that's nice and light and fluffy, a little bit sandy, and you don't want any like rocks or anything like that in it. So again, you can grow carrots in like a peat-based soil, but most people tend to just like direct seed them in their garden beds outside. Then you'd be looking at like tilling the soil, amending with compost, manure, picking any rocks, sticks, and any other like plant debris that might be out of the way as well. And you're going from there.
Yeah, rocks will always get you.
Yeah.
When you pull your carrot and it goes like this, you know it was a rock.
Yep. Yep.
You know it was a rock. But it makes them fun. I really like pulling up the weird carrots.
I do too. It's fun to see some of the shapes you get.
But as like a commercial carrot farmer, they probably...
No, they don't want that.
That's the worst thing they'll see.
Yeah.
But luckily, we're not doing it on that scale where everything has to be perfect.
Yeah.
And we like to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right. Should we do our giveaway?
Sure.
Okay. So, wait, one question, and then we'll do the giveaway. Carrots in planting bags. My soil is all rocks.
You could do carrots in planting bags. You just want to make sure you have at least 10 inches of root space for the carrots. Harvest them at like 7 to 8 inches or a little bit earlier if you want to, but if you want that full 8-inch carrot, you need at least 10 inches of growing space for them.
Yeah, and we hill our carrots so we can get extra space and kind of like try and rake out all of the rocks that might come in contact with the carrots.
Yeah.
But yeah, carrots are great in containers. All right, so this prize going to one lucky person. The question, and everyone's connection is different, and we're going to go with the first one that hits our comments as the winner. How much is the prize pack worth?
If some people were here from the very beginning, I think Tara and I mentioned it a couple times.
I think we said it like 6 times.
Yes.
It must probably a dead giveaway. They're like, they keep saying it.
Yeah.
All right, how much is it worth? If you know how much it's worth, we'll send it to you.
It's kind of like the teachers in school when they're like, lectures, and they're like looking at the class, they're like, okay, this is really important.
This is going to be on the test.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we have a winner.
Perfect.
I'm going to wait.
Just let them come in a little bit more.
Yeah. Lots of people are coming in. People have really good listening skills.
They have really good listening skills. While we're waiting for those to come in, these items, essentially, they have excellent listening skills. These items can all practically be planted now. Just make sure, you're not getting any, like, hard, freezing, cold weather where you're going to be freezing the soil yet. But I think most of Canada is pretty much out of the cold weather now.
All right. While we wait for confirmation of the winner, look at this daylily. It has growth on it.
Yes.
Is that concerning?
No, that is not concerning. That's just from basically being shipped. Once you plant that, and once it reaches some cooler weather, it'll stop. It won't die, but it'll stop growing until the warmer weather comes. And you're going to plant that, I don't know if they can see, but right here at the bottom, this is the crown. You're going to plant that just up to the base of the green, basically, and go from there.
All right. And this dahlia tuber does have a little bit of growth coming out on it, and that's fine too.
Yep.
What's that, peat in there?
Yep, that's peat in there. And if, for this daylily, I wouldn't cover all of this, but for, what do you have down there, daylily?
A dahlia.
A dahlia. For the dahlia, if you have an inch or inch and a half of growth coming out, you can just bury that under the soil surface if you're concerned about cold weather too. And then once the warm weather comes, it'll continue growing and be just hunky-dory.
All right, so I can confirm our winner. It is Emily Gallant, who I know has watched a few times. So congrats on your first win.
Awesome.
And we will get this to you as soon as Canada Post allows. Mm-hmm. If you are on the island, though, you could let us know, and you could pick it up from the store on Saturday.
Yes.
Or we could ship it to you. It's up to you. Let us know in a private message.
Yes.
Don't tell the internet where you live and your business.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's see if we got another question. I bought your pelleted carrots this year, as always. So much thinning. I hate pulling them. Would you do anything different with the pelleted seeds?
Pelleted seeds? Because they are pelleted, you have more control over, your spacing and your handling of them. So you could probably put them a little bit further apart because they are a little bit bigger to handle. Mm-hmm. So just try spacing them a little bit more, and then you shouldn't have to actually do any thinning then at all. 2 inches apart, probably away from each other, would be enough.
Yeah, I love planting anything that's pelleted because it's just so much easier.
Yeah.
Because some seeds are itsy bitsy, and I did a majority of the planting in trials this year, and you can tell that the more plants coming up in a cell, the smaller that seed was, because it's so hard to put one itsy bitsy seed that's the size of a fleck.
But they look great.
They do look great.
Yeah.
And once we up pot them, we'll separate them out. And something that we do is we plant extras.
Yes.
And it's a sad story because we'll plant 50 of something, and then when we go to up pot, we'll only up pot 30.
Yeah.
And then even still, we're not planting all 30 outside.
Yeah, exactly. You take into account germination is never going to be 100%. That's under ideal conditions. And then our conditions, they might drop a little bit more. Some plants you might accidentally miss watering one here and there. Other reasons, some might die. So you always plant a little extra.
Yeah, because if you want to make sure that you have 10 of something, don't just plant 10. You're going to be upset. Something's going to happen.
Yeah.
So plant 20 and then reduce down. Give them to your friends. Give them to your neighbors. Yep. Let's see. Okay, perfect. Right. Diana, I haven't planted a garden for a few years. What can I use, or do I get good soil for this year? Or do I go get new soil for this year?
If you haven't planted anything for a few years, compost manure. And it sounds like you maybe have some large garden beds. I would get some in bulk. And then I would just, be shoveling that onto the beds. And wherever there isn't any plants already or bulbs, I would just be working that into the soil just with a hand rake or something like that.
Yeah, weeds are probably going to be your biggest nemesis this year. Mm-hmm. And if you don't plan on getting into your garden for a little bit, if you could cover with some landscape fabric
that would be a big help as well.
To not allow any of those weeds to germinate. And then they'll die off by the time that you need them. But weed seeds can live for years. Years in the soil.
Yes.
So, weeds.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of weeds. But yeah, compost. Always compost.
Always compost or manure. Always organic matter. This is the single best thing you can do for your soil and for your plants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you can start making your own compost or raking your leaves into your garden bed to be your own compost.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think we're out of questions.
That was a good amount of questions.
It was a good amount of questions. It was a great time. I really like our new wall. Mm-hmm. It is fantastic, and the studio is great. And we're coming back next month. Let me look at a calendar and see when that is.
Middle of May.
Middle of May.
April.
1, 2, 3. It'll be May 15th, right?
There you go.
Right in the middle.
Perfect.
So yeah, we'll be back here May 15th. Get your questions ready, and we'll have another big prize package.
Yeah.
I think we'll still probably be able to be sending out some like roots and bulbs, maybe.
I think so. We'll just change it up a little more from this time.
Yeah. I'm excited. We love to give you guys stuff, and when we come back, everyone should be planting.
Yes.
Everyone should have like something in the ground somewhere.
Yes.
Let me double check if we have any more questions. I closed it like an amateur. What are you doing today?
When I get back, so I'm going to finish getting the greenhouse together. I'm going to move some onions up to the greenhouse. They'll handle the cool weather for a little bit yet. And then next week we're going to be starting brassicas. We're going to probably be doing some thinning. We'll start some containers in the greenhouse, move more plants to the greenhouse. It's going to be a lot of planting and a lot of transplanting in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Very excited.
Yes.
Very excited. I can't wait. Favorite time of the year.
I know. I love smelling the soil in the greenhouse.
I like it. I won't have clean hands again for months, though.
Mine have not been clean for a while.
Yeah, it's like springtime when I switch from my regular rings to silicone rings.
Yes.
And I won't put my real rings on unless it's a special occasion until like December.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. Great questions today, and we'll see you guys on May 15th.
See you all then.